A great quote that I've read today is from Howard Baldwin, former owner of the Hartford Whalers of the WHA and the NHL. And he said, "To me, Gordie Howe is a contradiction." And Howard joins us now. What did you mean by that, Howard?
Well, first of all, hi, and nice talking to you, even though it's a sad occasion. But what I meant was Gordie, when you were with him in an environment off the ice, he was a kind and gentle man who loved to be playful, whether you were an adult or a child. He would always smile and have a twinkle in his blinking eye. But when he got on the ice, he turned a little bit differently, as anybody and everybody who ever played with him or against him knew. And he could be, I guess, a kind way of saying it is ferocious on the ice. And it was to me a fascinating contradiction.
Tell us about the first time you met him. What was that experience like, and how did it come to be?
Well, it's a fun story. The first time I met him was actually, I started out with the Philadelphia Flyers 50 years ago. The first year I worked for their minor league team, and Vic Stasiak, you guys remember that name, was our coach, and I was pretty much a one-man band in the front office in the old Eastern Hockey League. And Vic idolized Gordie, and he said, "Come on, we got to go up to Madison Square Garden. The Red Wings are in town, and we're going to go see Gordie." And so we went up together and watched the game, and then after the game down in the locker room, that was the first time I met Gordie, and I was in absolute awe of him. I was only 22 years old. And then the next time I really got to meet him was when the Houston Aeros signed him the second year of the WHA, and when he came into Boston for a Whaler game, we honored him before the game, and Colleen was with him, and right away we sort of had a friendship starting from that moment.
Now,
and then of course, we signed him.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did it come from the friendship that I don't know how many options he had or didn't have to come back to the National Hockey League, that he finishes his career in the NHL and with Howard Baldwin's Whalers?
Well, what happened is in Houston, they were having some, like a lot of WHA teams did, financial difficulties, and there was great pressure from the Bruins to have the Howe sign in Boston. I don't think they were thinking of Gordie as much as Mark and Marty. And, of course, we knew they weren't going back to Houston, so we made an aggressive bid to keep them in the WHA and have them come to the Whalers. And it was a long negotiation, but we got it done. And he came to Hartford. It was, to me, the greatest moment in Hartford sports history is when Gordie Howe played for the Whalers.
What kind of impact did it have? How did it relate in terms of ticket sales, interest in the team, all of that?
It was dramatic because when we signed him, we always did well in the WHA, okay? But the first year we won everything, and then, of course, when you win everything the first year, no matter where you are, they expect you to do it from then on in, and we always were competitive, but we were never what we did that first year. And the minute the House came, it restored our credibility as a hockey power in the WHA, and it made a huge our ticket sales and everything we were doing. It was
Trying to bear with Howard Baldwin's phone, the former owner of the WHA and the NHL's Hartford Whalers. If you're still with us, Howard, just curious, those negotiations, you said they were a long negotiation. Were those talks with Gordie himself, with Colleen? Who handled those negotiations?
Well, I did with Jack Kelly, who did a wonderful job, and Dave Andrews and a lawyer named Bob Caparel. But I mean, I was right there. And for Gordie's side, it was Colleen. I mean, she did it, and she was years ahead of her time. She was a wonderful representative for the family and for Gordie as a manager, and of course as a mother and a husband. But she was the focal point.
How was he with the young kids on the team? That must have been a real positive. What were his strengths as far as dealing with your young players?
Just for the young players, just being able to say you're in the same arena with them was a thrill. And in the beginning, of course, it's awesome to be playing with the Babe Ruth of hockey, this icon, and you grow up reading about, worshiping, and then all of a sudden you're on the ice with him. And then you realize he's one of the guys. Gordie has always been one of the guys. There's been nothing aloof about Gordie. He's been one of the guys, whether you're a 19, 20-year-old coming in or a veteran. He was just a wonderful person.
Well, how do you make that work, Howard? Because you see today where it's difficult for older players to be one of the guys, and there is that separation, that division in the room.
Well, I don't, look, I'm not in touch with the player of today. I can only relate to my experiences and the experiences I witnessed. And I think if you're a regular guy and have the right personality and demeanor, whether you're the greatest in the game or you're a fourth line player, it'll come through. And certainly with Gordie, he never expected any different treatment. He just wanted to be treated as one of 20 guys. And you had to love that.
Do you have a favorite memory, Howard, of Gordie, one on the ice and then maybe a Gordie Howe moment off the ice?
Oh, gosh. There are so many. I'll tell you, off the ice, it was a great moment when I introduced him in Des Moines, because we had an American League team there after the Whalers, after the Penguins, and Gordie was wonderful. He came in when the building was opening, and I remember the people saying, well, do you think enough people here will know who Gordie Howe is? And I said, I think people will get the message, and you're going to have a great turnout. And I remember the moment when the event started, the people were lined up 3 times around the building. And poor Gordie had to spend literally almost a day signing his autograph for the good folks in Des Moines. And I remember I was so proud to introduce him, and I said to everybody in the arena, now remember this moment, because you're looking at the most iconic figure in the National Hockey League and in all of professional hockey. And one day you'll be able to tell your children and your grandchildren you were in an arena with Gordie Howe. It's just a great, great moment. We had a lot of them, though, I want to tell you. And, just seeing him, I guess, for me, just seeing him in terms of on ice, just seeing him on the ice in Detroit when we went in for an exhibition game in the old building, the Olympia. And it was an exhibition game when the WHA started playing exhibition games with the NHL. It was the year Rogie Vachon, remember, had to hold out or something, and the building was filled. They went ahead 3-0. We tied it up 3-3. They went ahead 6-3, and then we tied it up. And I believe Gordie got the final goal to tie it up. The game ends. Now, this is an exhibition game. Nobody would leave the building. They would not leave the building. They couldn't get enough of Gordie. Pretty special.
Hey, bit of a different question, but WHA memories. Whatever became of the Avco Trophy? You won it the first year. Is an element of mystery to it?
Well, the element of mystery is the first year we won it, they didn't have it. The trophy wasn't ready, so there are pictures of me and a couple others holding a trophy that we bought at a store about 48 hours before the final game. But there is the Avco Cup that eventually was arrived, and that, I believe, is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
Howard Baldwin owned the team that Gordie Howe played for. Appreciate your time today.
Very glad to be with you guys. Thank you for having me.
Imagine that, negotiating to bring the Howes. It wasn't just Gordie, the Howes, to come and play for your team in the National Hockey League.
Negotiating with Mrs. Howe, who was a shrewd negotiator, and he's absolutely right. She was ahead of her time, incredibly sharp lady, and she did so much for that family in terms of the contracts, the endorsements, getting the Howe brand out there long before agents really thought of that kind of thing. She was a tough negotiator.
You know, having Harry Sinden on earlier,
lady.
kind of forgot about that. That, yeah, they wanted Mark Howe. That's right. The Bruins wanted Mark Howe, and they didn't want the package. And so that, as Howard Baldwin said, okay, we had the advantage that we would get the package, and the three of them could come to Hartford. But that's right. You know, Harry Sinden, they were aggressive about. They recognized Mark Howe as the young diamond in the rough. So Hartford had to come up with something different.
And you mentioned, we were talking about, Gordie Howe, number 9, and it still exists in kids hockey that the best player often on a team still ends up wearing number 9. Gretzky had it as a kid and idolized Gordie. And the story behind him actually getting the number 9 is when he first got to Detroit, he wore number 17. And then Roy Conacher, who had the number, got traded, and they asked Gordie to wear number 9, and he was superstitious and said, no, I don't want to do that. And the reason he eventually changed is the trainer, Lefty Wilson, back in the day they used to travel on the trains, sleep on the trains, is the trainer said, the lower the number, the better the berth. You get the lower berths on the train. He says, so if you're smart, you'll take the number. He took the number.